So thank you for Tim, and thank you for everyone for attending. Firstly, it's a real pleasure to be your first speaker. Some of you might be asking, why are we talking about AI at an ESG conference that's fueled by lawyers? And I guess my first answer to that question is that it's very clear that AI is already here in ESG and sustainability in particular. And so what I'm going to talk through today is hopefully give you a bit of perspective on how AI is being used in this space and what you'll see going forward. I'll give you a little bit of an introduction to some of the areas that AI is being used, and I'll talk through some practical examples at the end, how we're using it in our own organization. Firstly, a little bit about sort of today's presentation. Firstly, what it is not is a deep dive into the technology of AI for a number of reasons. First is that we don't have time, and secondly, I may not be the right person to be able to give you that. But today we'll give you some perspective on how you might be able to think about AI in your own ESG initiatives and for that of your clients. A little bit about my story first. I am a lawyer and a former in-house counsel. Like many of you, I spent my time in private practice and then about 10 years in in-house roles. I happen to have both a technology software development background from being a software engineering degree and a law degree, obviously, and then a master's in IT law, and then spent about 10 years in-house at IT companies. So whilst I am capable of talking about AI and how we do things, it's been a long time since I studied it. I then spent about 18 years in my own businesses, so building technology solutions for lawyers and for compliance and governance officers in a series of businesses for which Speeki is one. So my team now focuses mostly on the ESG and sustainability space. So I switched from the compliance and the governance world about 4 or 5 years ago. And I switched because a lot of the skills that we all have in the legal, compliance, governance areas were very relevant to this new world of ESG and sustainability. And so like many of you who have made an intentional switch or perhaps have expanded their skill set, I've done the same thing. And so my background has now been transversed into a broader prospect around ESG and sustainability. So a lot of my time is now spent in the E in ESG, in addition to many of the other social and governance areas. So the Speeki story came about 4 or 5 years ago when part of our group was sold to the London Stock Exchange group, and we spun off the Speeki group. And our focus in Speeki is really two things. It's software and assurance, so auditing and reviewing. So whilst our basics are around software, assurance is actually a really important piece now in that ESG world. And we're going to touch on today how AI is now getting involved in the assurance side as well. So the old world of assurance and auditing is dramatically changing and changing fast. And AI is playing a significant role in that. So we'll touch on that towards the end of the presentation. So our topic today is really focused on two things. The first is I'm going to walk through some examples in industry where AI is being used as a technology to speed up ESG and sustainability practices. And for that, I will walk through a number of key areas, and I'm going to give you some examples of things that I've come across in my work and my study in this area. And I will then pass to the second stage of the presentation, where I'll look at some of the more practical approaches that we are doing in our own organization. And I'll walk you through some practical guides and some videos as to how we're doing things on our side at Speeki. There may well be some time at the end for questions. If you have some great burning questions, save them and I'll try and capture them at the end. If I don't get to them during the session due to time, I'll cover them throughout the next 2 days. So I'll be here the whole time. And if they're very difficult questions, my 2 team members who are here will also answer them for you. So let's get started. So the first part is really about looking at AI in the universe of ESG and sustainability as we deal with some of these challenges that we're all facing. Now, I didn't get a chance to go through all of the areas, but I've taken a few areas to focus on. And the first is water. How is AI being used in water? Well, when we start to think about sort of the way in which we use water and we track water, actually, AI is severely now making an impact on how we measure water, how do we understand water, the movement of water, the usage of water, the wastage of water, and the tracking of water and its misuse in some areas, and also its waste. And so in each of the areas, waste, let me go back, let's do water first. So in each of these areas, I've identified for you a QR code, which is on the screen. So if you do want to dig a little bit deeper into these topics, I've included a reference which you can search and read. And I've included some what I think are the best references. So if you do want to study up on some of these topics, I've included all the reference material there for you on the QR codes. But water is one of the biggest challenges, in my view, that we're facing. Despite the emissions challenges, water is a huge issue. AI is making a significant impact. Now, I've listed here a couple of the places where it is making an impact. It is now being used significantly by municipal governments and local governments in order to identify infrastructure gaps. So identifying where water leakages are, predicting where repairs are going to be happening, identifying gaps in the system, leakages. There's a large body of material now, of material science, which is focused on how do we identify water leakage. Seems obvious, but the old days of looking for a puddle of water somewhere, hopefully, are moving behind us, and we're now starting to get into the predictive areas. We've also seen a lot of investment in the areas of water optimization. So how do we use AI to identify water usage, and how do we identify where water needs to be at the right time? So a lot of new technologies are now being introduced to try and track the usage and the expected usage of water. So again, utilizing better consumption controls, leakage controls are kind of at the forefront of how AI is starting to integrate this industry. There's been a lot of work also done in this area around flood prevention. We've seen in the last few days, significant challenges in Spain. A lot of this issue is down to knowledge and expectations and where water is being likely to come and how is it flowing and where is it going to move to. So a lot of preparation work now and predictive technologies are being used on the transportation of water. So again, that's also, of course, coming into climate change and started some of the initiatives around the locations of where water is likely to move. We've also seen a lot of work in water treatment. So AI is now starting to get involved in some of the water treatment side of the industry, and also starting to identify where we have water quality issues that we didn't have previously. So when we look at water generally, there's been a significant amount of AI that's been lifting what has been a very basic engineering challenge into something that's significantly smarter. So the good news is, there are some very smart scientists out there who are working on some of this stuff and making a significant impact. Similarly, if we look at waste, waste is something that we all know, we all understand, and we all think of waste and recycling, but there's a lot of AI now being used in the waste area. And that looks at both the waste sorting perspective. So when we extract our waste and we start to sort it for the purposes of recycling, a lot of AI is now being involved to automatically sort waste. Previously, it was humans. Humans would go through the trash and start sorting waste into categories. Now, AI tools are doing that automatically. So a lot more efficiency and productivity gains around waste management. We've also seen the technology, in particular AI and drones, being used in landfill sites, where we're starting to identify potential issues, methane levels. We're managing different types of waste, contamination sites, etc. So a lot more control around how the waste is managed in landfills. So again, some really interesting developments on the waste space. Moving to another topic. When I was researching for this material, I started trying to find things that were just abnormal or a little bit interesting to talk about. And the one that I kept coming back to was bees. Now, many of you would think, why am I talking about bees? Well, hopefully, we all know the significance of bees to our life. But there's been a lot more work being done around AI and how to encourage both the beekeeping industries to be more productive and to start tracking the movement and the health of bees. So again, we're seeing this AI creep into all of these areas, which are hopefully going to help some of the systemic challenges that we've got in this ESG and sustainability space. Clearly, increasing pollination and the way in which bees operate to support our agricultural industries are absolutely key. And that's what scientists are working on. So there's a lot of activity happening in this space, which is fascinating to read. And again, the QR codes are here if you want to dig deeper into these topics. I picked another issue on the S side. I put it under the category of slavery, but really it's a human trafficking question. A lot of new technologies are now coming to try and identify victims of human trafficking. So a lot of identification work is being done now with airlines and organizations to try and identify when we have human trafficking, and not only to identify the potential victims of human trafficking, but to identify those that are indeed the traffickers. So, and some of this is identification, but some of this is predictive monitoring, and it's predictive monitoring of people moving around the world and systems and identification of paths that people take and starting to really predict how do we get across the new routes that people are taking to move humans and traffic humans throughout the globe. So when we stand back and think about some of these systems, they're there to make things more efficient, more productive, but also more predictive, where hopefully these technologies can get us ahead of where we are now, which is frankly pretty reactive when it comes to human trafficking and slavery issues. So a lot of really interesting material coming forward. Another topic on supply chains. We recognize that in the ESG and sustainability space that in many cases, we're only as good as our supply chain. And we're leveraging our supply chain to try and be, hopefully, leaders in ESG and sustainability, or at least increase their quality. So a lot of work is being done in supply chains. I will show you some of that to a very small degree in the areas that in the second part of the presentation from the Speeki side. But a lot more work being done on the ESG and sustainability detection, so emissions detections, and in the supply chain, identifying supply chain movement, looking at some of the demand changes, identifying misconduct, identifying risks in suppliers and supply chains and supply categories. So a lot more sort of focus on how do we detect issues. And that can be in systems both inside your company, but also operating through your procurement and supply chain industry. So on the risk management side, as well as on the misconduct side as well. And again, I'll show you a few things of this as we get forward. Another couple of examples on cyber. Most of you would be very familiar with the challenges that we all have around cyber risks and the challenge that we have in managing information security within our organizations. It's a very sophisticated area. Historically, it did not use a lot of AI technologies. However, now it is heavily being used. So in most organizations and software now, AI is being used in significant amounts of anomaly detections, identifying where potential breaches are happening. It is used now in most of the publicly available commercial software around cyber risks to identify where gaps are in systems. So I've seen some of these work significantly well. The new generative AI models and the large language models that can help you identify potential phishing examples or can sort emails for you into categorizations. A lot of technology is driving that. So when you see something come into your email box, which is marked as phishing or potential spam, historically, it was a very simple model that did that. It was looking at white labeling of email addresses, et cetera, and looking at some examples of countries where the email came from or potential servers that have been blacklisted, et cetera. That's kind of old thinking. New thinking in using generative AI uses a significantly more amount of technology in order to identify potential outliers. So something that doesn't look right, and that could be a multitude of issues. So AI is fantastic at looking at and categorizing information, and it has done that extremely well in the cyber security space. We've also seen it being used in some of the positively and negatively in deep fake identification and in photo identifications in systems in order to identify facial technology, et cetera. So a lot of those technologies that we're relying on old school IT are being significantly upgraded. So the good news as we go through all these examples, that I've only picked 5 or 6 of them, is that there is significant movement in this space. And AI is now being embedded into everything, frankly, in this space, in ESG. Most of it you won't see, frankly. And AI, you don't know that it's AI that's driving it, but it is a form of AI that's contributing to it. Another example that I picked, because I just found it very interesting, was that AI now maps the changes in icebergs around the world 10,000 times faster than what a human does. So with the benefit of satellite technology, AI engines are now capable of identifying the reduction in size of icebergs 10,000 times faster. So a calculation that was taking months to prepare is literally now done in a few minutes. So the science behind ESG and sustainability risks are significantly being adapted. And that's from the scientific side and measuring the impact of climate change, but also on the corporate side, which I'll cover in a moment, that's looking at how do we use this in order to manage our own ESG and sustainability. So again, if you're interested in reading the material, I've got the QR codes included there for you. So let's now move to the second part of the presentation. Now, as we go through some of these examples, I'm going to walk through places where in our own world, we've looked at the technology and how can we leverage our own technology in order to help our companies and our clients. Now, at this stage, people often ask me this question around, well, what sorts of AI do we use and what does this consist of, etc. Now, any good AI system is just a piece of technology. And there's an old technology and there's a new technology. Now, the new technology happens to use some artificial intelligence. Now, there's different versions of AI, which I won't go into and explain. But broadly speaking, to most people, you shouldn't care too much about it. You shouldn't necessarily know what sort of AI is driving it or what's category of AI. And in fact, it shouldn't matter to you, frankly, what sort of AI engine is being used. At Speeki, we use six different AI engines as part of our software. So that, for example, there might be something from OpenAI, from Microsoft, from IBM Watson. We use Meta, we use Entropy, we use about 6 actually. And so essentially, without getting too technical, essentially those 6 engines are placed into our system, into our servers. And when the software needs to do something, make a decision, make a translation, do some form of AI activity, it calls on a particular engine. And it sends information back. Now that happens all within the confines of our platform. Now, for most of you, no one would know what engine it uses. And the answer is it uses different. So for translation, like Google Translate type thing that you're all very used to, we use a particular engine. For voice to text or text to voice, we use a different kind of engine. For summarization of text, we use a different type of engine. So what we do on our side is when we have a task that we want to create, so a task management system or a user rights system or a summary system, or creating a CSRD report, or we're creating tags. What we do is we test it across those 6 engines to work out which one is the best, and then we apply that. So some of the examples that I'm going to walk you through that we've done uses one of those 6. I don't even know which one it is, to be honest. In most cases, someone does, I don't. But the answer is that there are multiple ones. And so what you'll find in most companies now is that each of those 6 engines that are commercially available are a little different. They do different things. Some of them are strong in some areas, some of them are weaker in others, and companies will identify the one that works for them. So you're wondering why NVIDIA and some of these AI companies are doing so well. And the answer is because we just don't buy one AI. All of our companies are buying 4 or 5 because we need to have that diversity. They all do different things and they're all good at certain things and not others. So you won't ever choose one AI engine. So I'm going to walk you through how we're doing some of the things on the ESG and sustainability side in our group. And hopefully the purpose of which is to give you some perspective on how it can be used, but also on your side as well, how you can integrate this into your organizations or into your clients. So firstly, I do believe that this is transformative. I believe this is going to transform the way we do things in this industry. And for those of you that are in this space or advising in this space, there's some very clear advantages in using AI technologies. To give you some examples on the software engineering side, something that might have taken us 2 months to build in the old world, we can probably do in about 15 minutes. So 2 months to 15 minutes. From a software development engineering side, unbelievably productive and unbelievably valuable. Something that may have taken computing power to translate or to do something that might have taken a few minutes can now be done in a few seconds. So the difference in productivity gains is quite significant. So as an organization that's looking at this, I think frankly, there's no option but to move to these things. So anyone who thinks this is going to go away or that's going to disappear or it's not necessary, it's just you're already hopefully moved on. So it is definitely transformative. So here are some of the areas that we're using, and I'm going to give you some examples of these. But we use it in part of our platform has some whistleblowing system. So it's a whistleblowing system and other things. The whistleblowing system, we don't use humans. We don't have a call center. We don't do that. We decided humans weren't really necessary. AI can do that. And I'll show you some examples of how that works in a second. But yes, people every day, multiple times a day, will report something to one of our clients, and they'll do so using the AI chat. And that is in speaking as well as typing. So you may hear, by the way, you may hear me refer to a lady called Nicole throughout this presentation. Nicole is our version of Alexa or our version of Siri. We happen to call her Nicole. I can't remember how we got to that name, but we decided to call her Nicole. So if I refer to Nicole, she is my AI assistant that's built into the systems. We also use Nicole to analyze our clients' ESG programs. So we use Nicole to make an assessment as to how the client's ESG initiatives are going, whether there's gaps, areas that they need to focus on, and how the client can improve the ESG versus industry. Now, obviously, we have trained Nicole, we've educated Nicole on how to do these things. And so a lot of my time is spent training Nicole on how to become a great ESG and compliance person. We use AI in our carbon accounting system, and I'll explain a little bit on how to do that. It's a bit tough to explain because a lot of it happens behind the scenes, but I'll do some of that. And I'll show you a little bit how we use AI in our ESG and reporting systems. So our system obviously does CSRD and IFRS reporting. And so I'll show you how the AI engine is being used to create that. I will also show you, hopefully, how we use AI in supplier risk assessments. So we are now using Nicole to identify whether a particular supplier that a company wants to use has got some systemic risks. So what are those risks that we have in the supplier, and making sure that we ask the supplier the right questions that we need in order to conduct due diligence. So Nicole is now getting trained into identifying risk in the supply chain. We're also using Nicole to respond to customer questionnaires. So many of you will be familiar with the concept of your customers giving you questionnaires. I got one yesterday that was 300 questions, I think, from memory, which thankfully my sales team sent to me and I sent it to someone else. But 300 questions, I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. 290 of which I think are totally irrelevant, but we're going to fill them out because we have to. So I'm going to show you how Nicole is now tackling that in our platform. The next thing I'm going to quickly cover is supplier scoring. So we have a business that's kind of similar to EcoVadis in some areas, where we do scoring on the suppliers. And so the supplier fills out a lot of information and we do a lot of scoring. That used to be manual. So that used to be myself and my team would go through and review things and do calculations. We had some scoring built in and stuff, but it was frankly pretty rudimentary. AI and Nicole are now changing the way in which we do scoring and calculating that customer's responses. I'll touch briefly on what is a very complex topic of XBRL reporting, which some of you may be familiar with. XBRL is a format or a technology format that is the formatting style that ESG reports are going to be submitted to authorities. I'll touch on how we're doing that. It's a bit complex to show, but I'll walk through that. And that will be kind of towards the end. So I'm going to now show you a couple of quick demonstrations on how that works, and I'll walk through some of them for you. So again, hopefully you'll find this interesting and you can get some ideas as to how this could work in your companies. Nothing that I'm showing you is, I don't want to say it's not rocket science, but nothing I'm showing you is rocket science. It's all things that you could do in your own organizations. So as I walk through these, there are a couple of videos. I will try and pause at the right time to walk you through what it means. Some of the videos are quick. So as a result, you might have to keep your eyes on the screen to keep following. So apologies for that. So let's get through the first ones. So one of the first challenges that we're going to look at is Nicole thinking about a company's climate change initiative. So this is part of our platform. And she's going to walk through the analysis of how a client is managing climate change. So she's firstly going to generate some reporting, and she's going to now identify, she wants to do a monthly report on the climate change initiatives, and she's going to send it through to executives. So she's working out who the audience is, she's working out the titles, and she's now going off and generating the report. So what she's doing is she's going and saying, please prepare a report for me for management on my climate change initiatives and give me the up-to-date KPIs and prepare the report for management. So she's going to the system and she's extracting that information and she's putting it into a report for me. Nicole can do whatever we ask her to do. If we want her to do a monthly report on all of ESG, we can set that up. If she wants to do it just on one section, we can set them up. So this is using that AI capability that I talked about before, which is classically generative AI. So it's going and looking for pieces of information and then consolidating into reports. So it's what you may have seen in things like ChatGPT. that are very good at doing that kind of example. So again, pulling data, assessing it, knowing what to find, organizing, structuring it, putting it into paragraphs and into a report for the right audience. The next piece is something that we didn't create in-house. We use a service for. So in the platform, we've developed about 1,000 or so videos that guide companies on how to manage ESG and sustainability. And so we invented a picture of Nicole, and we have Nicole now talking about lots of issues. So about 1,000 videos. Now, again, this is a piece of technology that we incorporated into the platform. We didn't build this ourselves. And this uses an AI engine called Synthesia, which many of you may be familiar with. It's open, you can buy it, it's not very expensive, but it's great, it's very good. So this is a text to voice use of AI. Many of you will be familiar with that. So the AI that's being used here is text to voice, and it is also using some AI around lip movements, etc. So you'll see some of that.
Welcome to the next step in your climate stability journey, launching your sustainability initiatives. The time has come to put your plans into action. Start by identifying the projects with the most immediate impact, like energy efficiency upgrades or emission reduction efforts, and prioritize their implementation. If you're exploring new approaches or technologies, consider beginning with pilot programs. This allows you to test and refine these innovations on a smaller scale before expanding them across your organization. It's essential to establish clear roles and responsibilities to ensure everyone is aligned and working toward the same goals. Finally, don't forget to set up robust monitoring systems that track your progress in real time. These systems will help you make informed adjustments, ensuring your initiatives stay on course and deliver the desired results. With careful planning and execution, you'll be well on your way to achieving your sustainability goals.
So this sort of technology, that video probably took, I don't know, a minute to make, frankly. You just write the text, put a few spaces in, and then the system will then create for you these videos. Not very complex, you can literally do it in a few minutes. But the AI that's sitting behind the scenes does the text to voice. It also puts actually the text on the screen can obviously be changed into multiple languages. So this is language conversion piece, which is all done by AI. So again, AI is something that you don't even think is happening. You shouldn't know that it's happening. And frankly, you don't care that it's happening. You just expect it to be there. What is this? Another example is in one of the tools is surveys. So we have a survey system built into our platform that uses a lot of technology to gather information. So surveys or disclosures. So some of the AI we use now is to try and summarize that information in a way that makes sense. So you don't have to look at these results anymore. You can do it automatically.
In Speeki Survey, results are instantly transformed into clear, interactive graphs to help you spot patterns and trends at a glance. But the real game changer, with just one click, our AI gets to work. In moments, the system generates a detailed summary report, packed with meaningful insights and recommendations.
So again,
our AI-driven reports go beyond summarizing. They provide actionable insights, ensuring you never miss a key trend or opportunity. Whether you're tracking feedback or engagement, let Nicole handle the analysis so you can focus on what matters most.
So you can see there's 3 or 4 different types of AI being used there. So there's the analysis of information. So it's looking at graphs and presenting it to text. It's the summarization engine, and it's also the voiceover engine as well. So 3 or 4 different types of AI which are coming together. Another example that we've got is around exit interviews. So clients sometimes create surveys which may be exit interviews in a company so that they're trying to assess one of the reasons people left. Might be harassment, discrimination, workplace health and safety, other issues that they may have experienced. So we're using AI to try and take insights from those exit interviews and to feed that back into the human resources section. So clients use this in the sort of human rights, modern day slavery, workplace type issues. So they're filling out their exit interview, for example, at the moment. and they're giving some information. What's happening behind the scenes is that now the AI engine is now starting to look at all the results of all the exit interviews and now starting to prepare a report for you for management, which will then summarize, identify the key elements, and reporting it back to management in a form that we want. So again, same concepts, looking at how we summarize information and get things presented, giving you key findings, key observations. So no more are you looking at the results and thinking about what is this telling me. AI can totally do that for you. That is a very simple element of AI. Now, I mentioned before some of the whistleblowing pieces. In my view, whistleblowing technologies from the 1980s should be put to sleep. The ones that are now being used has been AI-based. So we use AI. In fact, we've started this 6 years ago, and this is powered by IBM Watson, but using AI to try and have that dialogue with someone who's reporting something on the platform. So here you can see someone who's about to raise an issue, and they're having a conversation with Nicole. So Nicole is about to then have a dialogue with this reporter. What happened? Can you tell me more? What are the next steps? Who else was involved? What were some of the concerns that were raised? So Nicole is smart enough to respond to the person's submission and know how to ask them for more information, know how to dig deeper, get some more data from the person who's reporting something. So they could be reporting a health and safety issue, a workplace issue, a particular ESG issue, or from supplier, corruption, bribery, fraud, whatever it is that could be happening. So again, as we use this technology, we're trying to make these systems more efficient. And so this technology is using voice to text. It's using, in some cases, text to voice. It's using automatic translation engines. So again, anyone can anyone can talk in any language, and Nicole will translate it for you. So again, using some basic AI technologies that can take away this human element. Another example is back in our assessments, I mentioned this before, summarizing and looking for next steps. So what should I be doing in my climate program? What should I be doing in my ESG program? So Nicole is now starting to give you some guidance and some feedback on your programs to tell you where to go next. And she's doing that based on her knowledge of your data sets and how they're being used. So again, summarization, intelligence, it's a large language model that's been trained by us in order to drive some of these initiatives. Finally, I'm going to talk about quickly I mentioned the questionnaire crisis that we're all going through, including myself, when we get sent these questionnaires. This is a new initiative we've got to try and help clients respond to these questionnaires, because technically the data is sitting in these systems. So we know the answers to all these questions. So when a client sends us these questionnaires, we can simply upload the questionnaire into the platform, and Nicole will go away and find all the answers to the questionnaire and plug it into a response, and you can send it back to the customer. So if the customer's asking for 50 questions on how we manage a particular issue, those answers are in our system. They're in the system. Someone just needs to know where they are and to automatically produce a result and export that out of the system and then identify the response for you. So then you can review it. Nicole, at the moment, we've got different types of assessments here. So we can say that Nicole is focusing on a 70% accuracy or a 60% accuracy. So she knows when she doesn't quite know whether something's correct, and she's asking you to double check it. A couple of final examples before we wrap up. ESG reporting. So the last couple of minutes, I'll cover this. An interesting challenge for all of us. How can we use AI in ESG reporting? Actually, before we get there, I'm going to do quickly due diligence. This one is talking about a new supplier and assessing the risk in a new supplier. So we're assigning someone here in Brazil. We've got a new supplier, and Nicole is working out what are the areas that we should be focused on. So what do we care about, and what should we be worried about? So what Nicole is doing is she's saying, I know we've got this supplier. I know they're in Brazil. I know they're doing these things. Show me what they've provided to us. So upload for me any questionnaires that they've given or any documents they've given, and I'll go away and assess it and work out what I think the risks are. And then what Nicole's going to do is she's going to understand some of the areas around ESG. She's going to come back with a proposed set of risks that this supplier may have. And then she's going to ask you, do you now want to send out some information to that supplier to get them to give you some more data? So send a questionnaire. But the questionnaire that she's sending is exactly what we need to know. It's not 300 questions, it's 12, because she knows the questions that she needs to get to the bottom of based on the risk assessment. So again, supplier risk is another area that Nicole or any AI engine can really start looking at to make this whole process smarter than sending 300 questions to every supplier. So a little bit more targeted and intelligent. Again, I mentioned the scoring element. We do a bunch of scoring for companies and suppliers using AI as a bit more of a scoring engine so that it's a bit smarter in the way that it assesses results, and so that Nicole can start identifying whether or not what the company is saying is correct or not, valid or not, smart or not, industry standard or not, benchmarked or not. So she'll start to help with that assessment. Finally, in the last 1 minute, I promise, a little bit of taxonomy. So a little bit of work on ESG reporting. This is by far the most complex that you could see. I've used IFRS as an example here, but creating the taxonomy for an IFRS report, then the right tagging and putting things into the right format. So again, what Nicole's doing is she's going off to Speeki, she's pulling all the information out that's relevant to the IFRS standards or the CSRD standards, and she's putting that material information and she's building that report for you. So we use Nicole to do a substantial amount of work in the ESG reporting space. And that enables us to map to the standards exactly, but it also enables us to tag the information correctly. So frankly, it's very complex, but it's a very necessary part of the industry. Otherwise, what you're going to be doing is mapping, frankly, by hand, which is a disaster. So again, she knows when something's not right or needs to be adjusted. The final piece which I'm going to show is many of you will have reports that you will send out to marketing. Marketing will make it look very pretty and they'll add in all sorts of pictures and all that kind of stuff, which is excellent, but they tend to reword things, which alters some of the stuff that we just put there. And so what we're doing now is, it's a bit complex to explain, but very quickly, when we produce a report under the system, we think it's accurate, it goes off to marketing, they make it look pretty, and in doing so, they lose some of the integrity of the report. So what Nicole is now doing is taking that report back from marketing, and then she is now starting to tag that report according to the XBRL requirements and the taxonomy requirements. So again, getting a lot smarter in the way in which they do ESG and reporting. So a lot more about tagging management and the formats that's required. So hopefully that has given you some overview on the things that we're covering. Next steps for us in this industry, assurance. So we're an assurance company. We do a lot of assurance work, but assurance is old school. What your accountants do and what we do is frankly from 1980s. And that world is so unbelievably broken and it's unbelievably human-based and it's just dumb. So our next focus is to tackle assurance. And how do we make that more valuable and frankly more efficient and more cheaper for people to get assurance done on ESG, but without spending a lot of money. Thank you. My time is up. Appreciate it. Hopefully that was a quick introduction and it was useful. If there's any questions, let me know and I'm happy to answer at some stage throughout the next 2 days.